Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this week's edition of the Time Tribune. As a matter of note, look for the Brian and I doing special sessions here. I think we've already did a couple of special sessions, and we're going to talk about some of that here today. But uh, please take note that the weekly editions of the Time Tribune news source uh, is going to be done on Sundays, so look for it. I've been pretty busy today. I'm intending on doing 5 programs total today. I've already did 2. This is my 3rd. So, very excited to get the Brian and I back in the saddle with the bands of time and the End Time Tribune doing these end time topics and news items. Um, and I'm just going to start right here with everybody. I'm going to say something that is going to rattle your cage. In the past 7 days, I just counted. In the past 7, in the past week, we've had 80 earthquakes over 5.0. 80. We've had 80. Since the End Time Tribune started, there's never been a fraction of that. If Brian and I ever covered earthquakes to the maximum that I ever remember, it was 22 over 5.0. We've had 80, just incredible, just absolutely incredible. So, talk about earthquakes in diverse places. On top of that, just here in the United States, we have multiple disasters seeking declaration so they can receive federal aid. Multiple states. Has anybody looked at the rain that happened in New York? They got 11 inches. It's not a rainforest. It's not the Orient. There's no monsoons in New York. They got 11 inches of rain in 48 hours. 11. Just take note. Here in North Dakota, where I am, that's on the order of 4 times more than we get all year. So it's just incredible what's going on. But it's incredible that this video that you sent me, I actually did a broadcast on it on a different platform when these charismatic pastors come out and said they had a government meeting from government officials, and all that turned out to be a lie. It's all been disproven.
The disclosure thing. Yep.
That was all a bald-faced lie from 3 top-tier charismatic TV evangelists. I mean, that's what they are. They're nothing more than that. And it's just incredible that every single thing that came out of their mouth was just lies, bald-faced lies. And what really bothers me, and I'm not going to mention the person that did it, but he wholeheartedly agreed with them. It made me sick. It made me sick, the commentator, because he never rebuked anybody. Everything's okay. They didn't mean to, and it's just gross misconduct. So really, that was worse than the 3 preachers.
Well, it was a big scam to sell their books, but to make matters worse is when the senator came out and he goes, I don't know what these guys are even talking about. Now, I caught this when the senator made that comment, and look, I'm going to be thoroughly honest. I had suspicions something stunk from the word go, from when Perry Stone came out and said something, but then when I saw these guys sitting there talking about the situation, and they're going, oh, and in your book, you include this, and oh, in your book, you included that to the other guy. Okay, look, right then and there, I knew it was all about merchandising. These people didn't have anything to add to the discussion. The whole only answer they could give is that it was demons. Look, demons are not capable of doing what these alien entities and these UFOs are doing. So no, it is not demons, folks.
Demons are disembodied spirits. Demons are what Jesus cast out of the man and entered into pigs. That's demons. He didn't do that to angels, ladies and gentlemen. Legion was not angels. Legion was disembodied spirit. These aliens are just masquerading angels. That's what they are. They're masquerading angels. And you need to understand what is going on. In the background, me and Brian have been discussing, because I've always wanted to give this a term, because you need to understand this. The Bible says they're flames of fire. They're plasmoids. Let that sink in. They're plasmoids. The government has already released documentation to that effect. They're plasmoids. These plasmoids will come in and they will turn into craft. You need to understand what's going on. They come into our dimension. Our dimension is composed of matter, physical matter. So they have to take from the elements. They gather matter to themselves and they mold it into shapes and forms. And they mold from it tools. We know the Bible says that they make robes. They're wearing robes. They put on robes for themselves. They even put on sashes of gold. They make chariots. Of course, the famous thing that they make from matter is their weapons, their swords. All these things are beyond contestation. That's what they do. So take note that when the plasmoids go back to their dimension, they abandon the things they've made and the bodies they were using. Literally, what will happen when they go back to heaven is their bodies that they're animating, their idols. Let me speak to you biblically so you can understand. What they make are literal idols. That's what the Bible's talking about. It states it several times in the Septuagint that these idols will speak and give direction. That's why. They're not bodies. They are just things that the angels have created to work in our environment, and the spacecraft is just their tools. That's what they're doing. So when they go back to heaven, these things fall dead. Look, a UFO don't have a power source. It doesn't have a drive system. There's no propulsion system. It is the angel propelling it. That's what's going on. So the thing that bothers me is we know this, that society produced their take on that. That's been the disclosure film. The government has backed up that release with these 3 UFO file dumps. The third tier of the United States of America is the church system. So you've got the government, society, and the church. It was only the church that has now been absolutely discredited and proved to be liars. So this creates a very bad environment for born-again believers once again. Because now all the world knows you can trust what society and their entertainment agencies put forth. what the government puts forth. The only thing you can't trust is what these preachers and these priests put forth. That's the only thing you can't trust. So, what's your thoughts on it, Bri? That's mine.
Well, the unfortunate issue, I took a quick look today, but prior to the stream here, I have just put UFO disclosure into my search and then hit news to see what came up, and it's still sitting in the fringe. It's nobody of any notes even talking about it right now. It's all being relegated off into the corner. And I mean, look, you'd think that this would have been some kind of world moving moment when all this stuff starts coming out, but nobody even seemed to care. It's just like, yeah, UFOs are real, aliens are real, big deal. Let's go along our merry way. I don't know about you, but I didn't know what to expect, but I don't think I expected that to happen.
Yeah. It is proof in the pudding that biblical Christianity has been wholeheartedly abandoned. And this is the reason why. Because the leaders of the church are liars and deceivers. That's really what they are. Now, you could say the same thing about society, but the society does it just for entertainment. So, like I said, this puts the church in the extremely bad light and legitimizes the two other aspects of our society. And it is a dangerous place that the born again believers have found themselves, and they don't even know it. They don't even know it. Look, what Brian's trying to say is nobody believes in creationism. Nobody. Everybody accepts evolution. That's what Brian really saw. He was seeing that religion, and especially Christianity, has been completely abandoned as far as thought and reason are concerned. So, of course, they would say, well, yeah, there's aliens, and the religious nutcakes thinks that they're demons. So, we're in a bad place. And this bad place is getting worse and worse and worse. Wait until they elect their false prophet, because their false prophet is going to say what they want to hear. What they want to hear is that Jesus Christ was reincarnated. He was here before. He was one of these entities. He was a plasmoid that came before. And this false prophet is absolutely going to say he is the return of that plasmoid. That's what he's going to say. The Judaists absolutely believe the Messiah is a reincarnated spirit. They call it a Gilgal. Look it up on Wikipedia. So they literally think that when the false prophet comes, he will be a reincarnation of Darius. He'll be a reincarnation of Cyrus. This is what they believe, and they don't hide this. This is a matter of public knowledge. And the church is walking dead center of their kill zone. I mean, it's just a matter of waiting until the event happens, Brian. We're just waiting for it to happen. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's, the big question we talked about in the middle of the week. It's the whole, what was the reasoning behind disclosure in the first place? And then I stumbled into the magical surprise of something I've been deeply looking into because of the fact that it's being studied scientifically. It's not paranormal researchers out there with all their funny gizmos. No, these guys are astrophysicists, full-blown scientists. They're bringing in experts from all multiple fields, and that's Skinwalker Ranch. It turns out the Skinwalker Ranch is the root of disclosure. And getting to the bottom of this This now is finally I got the answer, but now I need to find out why.
It's obvious why. At least to me it is, okay? And we talked about this the other day. I'm going to be point blank with you. One of the biggest deceptions of our time is this name Lucifer. Read Isaiah chapter 14 for yourself. In Hebrew, read it in Greek. Lucifer is a theological myth. God comes right out and tells you Isaiah chapter 14 is about the prince of Babylon. Now, that being the case, because it is the case, you would have to look into the geographical heart of Mystery Babylon. I'm going to upset a lot of people. I can prove this in a court of law. The global lingua franca is American English. All academic white papers can only be peer-reviewed in American English. No country can conduct international trade outside of the global reserve currency. That's the American dollar. I could go on and on and on and on. I could go on and on and on and on. I've said all that to say this. There is only one place in the United States where 4 states touch each other. That's for a reason. You need to go back and study when all the states were laid out. That was for a reason. Okay? That's why this area is called the Four Corners. Ladies and gentlemen, this was done on purpose. They came up with the phrase, the Four Corners, before they outlined the state boundaries. This was absolutely done intentionally. It should be of no surprise that what Brian mentioned is in the area of the Four Corners in Mystery Babylon. In Mystery Babylon. That's where Skinwalker Ranch is. They have decided to come down Jacob's ladder in the location of Mystery Babylon. They are going to do exactly what they did the first time. And guess when the first time the Bible emphatically tells you this happened? Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar, it was an angel that came down and turned him into an animal for 7 years. Look at it in the Greek. Look at it in the Hebrew. It's watchers. The watchers came down and executed God's judgment. They're going to do the exact same thing. What they did to Nebuchadnezzar, they're going to do to the false prophet. Only they're not going to execute God's judgment upon him. They will make him the deal that they made Jesus Christ when he was being tempted 40 days in the wilderness. And this joker is going to accept the deal. Now, what I'm alluding to, I'll just say in plain daylight, because this is the End Time Tribune. What I'm saying is this. The false prophet will be anointed as the false Messiah in or around the Four Corners. Now, ask yourself this. Does all this make sense now? Is it any secret when when you line up the history of Skinwalker Ranch and you line up the history with, the events surrounding 1948, the events surrounding World War II, yada, 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 is it just all random coincidence? Of course it's not. Because the angelic aliens, they are habitual. They do the same things over and over and over and over and over again. Let me stop right there. Brian, your thoughts. Jump in here before I ramble on for 2 hours.
Well, I was thinking about some of the stuff you brought up. I mean, if you go back and look at this area historically, like you said, around World War II, it's right around where the Manhattan Project was taking place and the testing of the nuclear weapons, atomic bombs, so on and so forth. You go back way further in history, the Four Corners was the region where the trade took place between North America and South America. They bring it down from the Mississippian region down into the Four Corners area, and then they go down, trading down further into South America. I've got stacks of books here about the Four Corners from work I was doing on Native American history just by itself before Skinwalker Ranch became a thing.
And what you've researched about Skinwalker Ranch, how far back does that history go?
We're talking, if you want to take it as far back, the family that started gaining attention, I want to say, was about the late 70s into the 80s, where there were some newspaper articles where they were reporting that weird things were happening, cattle mutilations, great big huge dire wolf. I said dire wolf. I said dire wolf, folks. They found evidence of dire wolf on Skinwalker Ranch. They've been extinct for 10,000 years. Okay.
Exactamundo.
Reports of orbs, all kinds of things. So this goes back to when those newspaper reports started coming out from that initial family. And then, what's his name? Bigelow bought it with the NIDS project, and then the Pentagon and the U.S. military got involved throughout the 80s and 90s and early 2000. And then the current owner picked the place up, and they started basically, making everything public through the History Channel show. And of course, they're being accused of making things up and all this other garbage. And folks, you can sit there and watch them do what they're doing. There's nothing they're leaving out. They're not making things up. It is what it is. I mean, I've seen enough stuff with my own eyes that I know when they're catching stuff on camera, they're not making things up.
Right. For example, the fields they clearly detect that are cold, not hot. Okay. That's the opposite of what should be happening. If you're expending fuel, ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you the truth. If you expend fuel, if you convert matter, that produces heat. Right, Brian? I mean, you can't get around that. What they're doing is the opposite. They are taking matter and putting it together. This is the opposite of combustion. That's what they're doing. The opposite of combustion. So I've often thought, and I'm going to say this again, Brian, we need to come up for a term with that, what they're doing. They're taking matter like Play-Doh and forming stuff. It's the opposite of combustion is what they're doing. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to bring up Bob Lazar again. He said they thought that what was powering this craft was element 115. No, ladies and gentlemen. I firmly believe the only way you can get radioactive material is to have an angel form it for you. An angel will do something like take something very dense like gold and will manipulate it. And when they do that, it's called Ophir. Let that sink in again. If they take metal and turn it into a radioactive isotope, as far as the Bible's concerned, that gold becomes the gold of Ophir. This is why Bob Lazar and his fellow scientists were confused. We don't have element 115 on Earth. How is that being made? It wasn't being made. It was being formed just like man was formed from the dust of the earth. We all know that. We all know that God took dirt and made Adam, right? Right? That's what these things are doing. They're forming. So it's the opposite of combustion. It's the opposite of that. So
Well, I was
anyway,
looking at the word, I brought it up to you last week, transmogrification. And I looked at the
right.
definition. It's exactly what I was thinking it meant. I wasn't sure if I was in left field or not on that one.
Well, and still I'm hesitant to use that because that's not. Look, because what they're doing is, look, let's say a molecule is comprised of 3 atoms in a certain configuration. They take the literal atoms and form molecules. That's not well, I mean, I guess it is. What I really do need to use is look at the Hebrew or the Greek word for when we were formed and use that. That's what I should be using. But anyway, so I'm sure this has been very enlightening and entertaining to a lot of people, but that's what I'm talking about, is the simple fact that you can prove beyond any contestation America is Mystery Babylon. And this is why they would have chosen this to be. Now, I'm going to come out in public and say what I've been alluding to. This is the new Mount Hermon. So let's just get Brian to explain. I'm going to get in the rumble seat for a minute. Let Bry take the wheel. Brian, what do I mean by Mount Hermon?
Well, Mount Hermon, according to the Book of Enoch, for instance, is where the Watchers came down and started doing what they did that led to the creation of the giants and to the flood. Now, why would this be the new Mount Hermon? Well, folks, they've discovered and they've proved this beyond any shadow of a doubt that at Skinwalker Ranch, you've got some kind of cone over the top of this place, a literal portal, mind you. And they've documented it in, like I said, a multitude of ways. They've proven there is something happening there that it doesn't line up with standard understanding of reality. They've got a time shift in this exact same spot where time loses a quarter of a second over this position. Okay, the GPS will be chugging along at one way. Next thing you know, it's showing 20 to 50 feet underground. They've got images where you see one of these disc-shaped, orbs go into the mesa, which is similarly like a mountain, but it's a mesa, and then come out in a completely different place. It goes literally right through solid matter and then exits in a different place. Okay, they've got this stuff on film. I don't know. Something ain't right. And that's
Right.
the only way to put it.
And just let me drop the bomb on why I'm telling you this is why the false prophet will be inaugurated there. Ladies and gentlemen, look, Mount Hermon is widely regarded by scholars as the probable geographic location for the transfiguration of Jesus due to its close proximity to Caesarea Philippi, mentioned in the Gospels, rising over 9,000 feet. It marks the northern border of Israel. This is where I firmly believe the false prophet will make his transformation. Now, listen, this is the gospel truth. The Bible, God's holy word, says that the Son of that the man of sin will be transformed into the son of perdition when he sets up the abomination of desolation. I firmly believe this is where it's going to happen. In the Four Corners area, most notably the area of Skinwalker Ranch. Now, most of you probably remember when I did a Christian conspiracy theory episode on this with my son. No, I didn't say all these things in that episode. I'm saying them now with the Bri on the End Time Tribune, because now is a beautiful time to say these things so I can get your attention. And I'm getting your attention so you can hear this. This is the truth. This is what you need to know. Not Skinwalker Ranch, not Mystery Babylon, not aliens or demons. You need to know that if you've been baptized by water, that's not enough. You need to be baptized in the Holy Spirit. You must be born again. We are down to crunch time. We're down to crunch time. I firmly believe if Jesus Christ was crucified in 30 AD, we're going to get this show on the road October 1st, because on October 1st, and let me speak plain English to you. I firmly believe if Jesus Christ was crucified in 30 AD, the 1,290 days will begin October 1st. Did I say that plain enough that you could understand it? You are running out of time. I know most of you are churchgoers that have been baptized with water. That ain't going to cut it. And once he is inaugurated, once this man of sin is transfigured into the son of perdition, because he becomes the son of his god of war, this beast from the sea in Revelation chapter 13. He's transfigured. Once that happens, if you haven't been born of the Holy Spirit, you will apostatize yourself from Christ, and you will persecute those of us that have been born again. Brian, it's about your time to give me a break.
Well, I was just thinking about some of the things going on down there as well that you and me have been talking about in the background concerning the Asher symbology and Native American cultures, especially. I had to quick grab my phone and go back through my open browser tabs to find it. But for instance, the Kachina is a Pueblo Indian, the Pueblo peoples of the Native American tribes, and the Hopi and a few others. And you'll see
Blackfeet.
like some of these images that have a ziggurat right on top of the crown. And, they've got the buried, uh, bird associations obviously with them. And if you look at a lot of the Native American ceremonial dress, obviously they've got the wings on the side, that are attached to them. And now look, everybody, this isn't far-fetched, because you have to realize that there's been many of the historians and archaeologists that have looked at ancient Sumeria, and there's a terminology that's used to describe the Sumerians. They call them dark head, and that's referring to their hair color, the black hair that they have. Now, there's a lot of varied archaeologists, academics, non-academics even, that have traced the fact that the Sumerians were most likely the same people as the Siberians that lived up by Mount Altai. And that's something I used to talk about a whole lot years back, is the Siberian folks in Mount Altai. And, well, they happen to be the same people that crossed the Bering Strait Bridge and came other routes as well and went into America and became what? Our modern day Native Americans. Now, to take this even a step further, in some of these some of those four corner Native American tribes, they still retain within their language Sumerian words. There was even a documentary I was watching, and a woman goes, "My name translates directly from Sumerian, and it means this." So this is not outlandish, okay? Having the connection between Asher, having a connection between the Prince of Babylon on top of it, it's not out in left field. And I'm going to actually wait to drop this bomb after the fact. Let Matthew chime in
Well,
from what I said.
let's bring up this. Where on earth does the idea come from of a feathered serpent? It comes from the Bible. That's where it comes from. So what on earth is it doing all over Native American iconology? And yes, you plainly look at the Samaria, more importantly, the Akkadians. When you look at the Akkadians describe themselves, they are describing what we would call Native Americans. They all have dark heads. They have dark eyes. They have dark hair. Their beards are dark if they have beards. They don't have any other type of hair on their personal being. They don't have green eyes. They don't have blue eyes. So literally, their heads are dark. So this does not take a stretch of the imagination. This takes archaeology. That's what it takes. It takes archaeologists to point this out. And linguists. It takes linguists. You have Native Americans coming out and raising their hands and say, yeah, I actually went to college and my name's actually Akkadian. Yeah, we have Sumerian text where my name is in there. Duh. So this is disturbing when most churchgoers hear this, Brian. They're like, wow, you just created an information dump on me. Yeah. Do your historical research on the Four Corners. Who decided to have one place in the United States where 4 states come together? Who did that? And that's what this place has always been called, for that very singular reason. So the elected officials always called these 4 states the Four Corners area. They always did it. And they always knew this was the center of Native American religion. Just like Brian stated, you can look in the documentation, it's the center of Native American trade. This is not a secret. Ask the Blackfeet Indians, they'll tell you. Ask any of them, they'll tell you. They really will. And they will tell you that these mesas here perfectly lines up with what the Bible describes as high tops. They're mountains with the top cut off of them. They're not a peak like Mount Everest. You can go up on these mountain tops, these mesas, and they're great big plateaus where you can perform all kinds of religious ceremonies. They're called mesas. They're mountains with flat tops. So, yeah, they're high places. Literally, they're high places. Mount Everest is not a high place. You can't set camp up on Mount Everest. Literally, these mesas are flat, and many of them, geologists have went up there and they're like, man, this is like it's perfectly level. So anyway, back to you, Bri.
Certainly. Yeah, they are definitely perfectly level. And it's many times that's the exact same spots where the infamous, some of them refer to them, the star people show up
Right.
and meet
Right.
with them. And they have documentation. They've got all sorts of petroglyphs in these areas depicting the meetings with these star people. And it's been going on for a long time. I mean, this is just not out of the blue that this has been happening. This has been going on since before the white men decided they were gonna show up here and start destroying everything. Sorry,
Yeah,
I had to
well,
say that, but it's true.
no, 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 you said it appropriately. You said it appropriately. These high places were also airports. They were landing pads. Do you understand that? They were landing. Brian is incorrect. This is why these entities sent and had the Anglo-Saxons come here. It was always their intention to set up Mystery Babylon, to have it be the global lingua franca, to have it be the global world reserve currency. That's why they gave us the material to make the atomic bomb. The first thing, the first technology they ever gave us was not anti-gravity. It was the atomic bomb. That's what it was. So when you realize that, you realize the great tragedy done here. It's just incredible. Brian, why don't you take on for a second? We got more entertainment. I got to plug this laptop in.
Well, and what Matthew is referring to here is, for one, I found a Roosevelt document last week that was declassified that basically stated flat out that when they recovered these crashed UFOs, they were using it to reverse engineer nuclear atomic weapons. And that's exactly what happened. And now, if we go back further and think about, what the Book of Enoch alludes to, is the fact that, Azazel's chief sin was that he taught mankind to build weapons of warfare, to build swords and all of that. So it's no different. It's no different whatsoever. We have weapons being handed over in modern times. The thing is, the catastrophic effect of these weapons, as opposed to the sword, it's enough to blow your mind, but that's exactly it. And it's like I've said this time and time again in the past. England was the chief superpower for a time. Along comes World War II, and the cup was handed. I'll say that again. The cup was handed to America, that then became the chief power.
We can prove they do this. This is a true statement. Hearken to my voice, ladies and gentlemen. The Bible calls Cyrus Messiah. But then Darius took over, and it was Darius that built the temple, right, Brian? Because, take note, it was the Babylonian Empire, but Nebuchadnezzar had to pass off that cup to the Persians. Daniel lived through this process. That's what Brian just described. That's what happened in World War II. It was time for the cup to be passed, and these alien angels decided for Mystery Babylon to be located here. So that cup got passed. That's what happened. The ones that had it before us was where we came from. Great Britain is our father. Great Britain is our Patreon. America is the son of Britain. So the angels took that cup and passed it to the next in line. That's what happened. This has happened 4 times. So anyway, absolutely, Brian, I absolutely agree with you. This is why the United States of America became the America. Why is that, ladies and gentlemen? When you say America, you don't mean Canada. You don't mean Brazil. America specifically, and not just here, globally. This 1/3 of the planet, let that sink in. Get a geographical almanac and add up all the land masses. The New World is 1/3 of the planet, people. Globally, when you say America, you specifically mean the United States of America, even though everybody in the New World is America, North America, Central America, and South America. But when you say America globally, you are referring to Mystery Babylon. And it's amazing how people don't know that. So yes, these alien angels, why are they aliens? They don't belong here. In the beginning, in the very beginning, let me jump over there real quick. Most people have a hard time processing it if you don't read it. Let's read it, okay? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. There's 2 dimensions, ladies and gentlemen. Heaven is the spiritual world. Earth is the material world. So when they come here from heaven, they have to gather material and make themselves strange flesh to inhabit. Now, most people take offense when I put it that way, but is that not exactly what the Bible says? I mean, when you go there and you read, what does it say? Let me read it to you. Job chapter 1, verse 6. And the angels who did not keep their proper domain, okay, there's only 2 dimensions, heaven and earth. That's what God said. So they left heaven. Let's keep reading. But left their own abode. He has reserved an everlasting chain for the judgment of the great day. What does he liken this to? Verse 7. This has happened before in Sodom and Gomorrah. As Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities around them, and in similar manner, having given themselves over to sexual immorality and gone after strange flesh. That's what this means in Greek. It means these plasmoids come into the physical creation and made for themselves strange flesh. They take one of 4 different types. They masquerade as Greys. They masquerade as Nordics. They masquerade as reptilians. And they masquerade, fourthly, as insectoid. Brian?
Yeah, and I mean that covers them all. I mean, we talked about this on the other program earlier in the week, and it's all kinds of entertainment when you realize that the infamous insectoid seemed to be also tied in with the USO, which is the unidentified submersible object, meaning they come up out of the water, they return back into the water. And this is happening mostly along the California coast. Well, when you look into the abyss, you realize it's all connected.
Yes. The abyss biblically is referring about the deep of the ocean. So, or the deep spiritually. Yes, it is. And what comes out of the deep? These locusts. Why doesn't the Greek in Revelation say birds? Why doesn't it say, um, uh, reptiles? Why doesn't it say horses? Why does it say what comes out of the abyss is insects? Why is that? That should give you a hint. If you do need a clue, it should give you a hint. So, you've been wanting to talk about these things in the background anyway, but once you sent me that video, it's just incredibly disheartening that It's not the government that's been discredited. It's not the entertainment industry that's been discredited. The people's own clergy have made sure that it's only the church that's been discredited with disclosure because of their layers and layers and layers of lies. They just outright lied and got busted in the process. It's just incredible. So, psychologically speaking, in the subconscious, all Americans know you can believe what the government releases, but not what the church releases. It's that bad. And this is incredibly disheartening to me. So,
Yeah, and
we're,
I mean the new people that have been put in charge of getting this information out to everybody, they don't even know what they're talking about. So that's leaving the church in this position where they're just the blind is leading the blind.
yes, the blind is leading the blind, which is very disheartening. But, we're running out of time, Brian. And, we've still got to do this special episode, detailing, giving everybody the facts of, you know, Pontius Pilate's prophetic imperative. It really does all hinge off the number one bad guy in the Bible, the very guy who crucified Christ. History really does hinge on Pontius Pilate. It's incredible when you see it. So, anyway, we're at the top of the hour. Time for closing comments. What say you?
Yeah, we were supposed to be covering news and somehow we went in this direction, but that's what was meant to happen. So
Yeah, that happens a lot with us, though. Do you see any news you wanna cover quick? You can.
it's really this week has been a lot of the same. It's back and forth with Iran. They're in they're trying to make peace. But what I personally think is going on is, well, the United States ran out of Patriot missiles. This has been known out there in the public for a while. They've run out of munitions, so they can't sit there and keep bombing Iran. Israel came out earlier in the week and said, well, we're going to let America handle Iran. Wow, so you pulled us into this, but now it's our problem. I mean,
Yeah,
it's enough to blow your mind. And then, on top of it, there were strikes inside of Gaza. 1,500 total have been killed since the ceasefire. And these strikes, they said they were going after commanders and they were
really.
going after weapons caches. There was,
Weapons cache.
yeah, and there were women and children killed. There was, civilians that were killed again, of course. Uh, Israel has not agreed to Hamas's ceasefire, so that whole announcement from Trump was bogus. It's the same typical thing. America says, "Well, here it is," and then Netanyahu's over in the corner going, "No, I'm not going to do it."
Right.
And that's what they
Yeah.
do. They ignore everything. So it's
Right,
the same
because
old garbage there.
this is a proxy war. We're just proxies of the Israeli.
And let's see, Syria, same thing. Israel won't agree to withdraw out of their borders.
Of course not.
Uh, it's the same garbage. It's over and over and over again. We just keep spinning in the same circles, and it gets to the point you don't even want to talk about the news because that's what geopolitics does. It just spins in circles until you have a massive moment, and then everything just kind of slowly moves along. I mean, there's been a lot of disasters, a lot of fires, a lot of, volcanic eruptions leading to earthquakes. There's been some pretty big earthquakes. Yesterday, New Zealand got hit, I think I saw earlier. Oh, Trump got nailed for what do you call it? Laundering money. Capital One closed all the Trump organization's accounts down for laundering money. Now, isn't that something else? Our president is laundering money,
He's a
and
proxy.
Capital One busted him.
He's a proxy POTUS.
They
So
would have impeached presidents for the last years back, but now everybody doesn't even care anymore.
So how is he laundering money? Did they say, is it drug money or what?
I didn't even bother to read it because I just looked at the headline and said, "Yeah, that's all I pretty much need to know." I'm not surprised.
Right.
He's been get caught doing all kinds of illegal things in office. He's making money off of, playing people against the stock market by making big announcements, and he's gotten nailed for so many financial discrepancies of how much, they go into office. His family and him make a ton of money while he's in office, and then they walk away.
Yeah, that's the plan. I mean, he's not special, is he? This is what the last president did. I mean, we know for a fact there's like 10 of Biden's family members that like got wealthy during his administration. I mean, yeah, look,
All I kept hearing about was Hunter. I mean, as far as regular Biden went, it was like the guy was a mute. I never heard anything about or from him.
well, anyway, that's how Hunter got all of his big contracts with foreign entities was because his dad was a proxy POTUS. And it's been that way since the Kennedy assassination. I don't have a problem saying they've just been proxy POTUSes. So that is that for this week's edition of the End Time Tribune. But you better look for special editions because Matthew loves to ride. If Brian's available and we can pull it off, we'll do special editions anytime we can. I've already did 3 today, and I have 2 more scheduled after this. And I'll probably do a 6th one if I can pull it off. So thank you for joining us. And I want to thank Brian for, a lot of people don't know that. Uh, It's amazing how the Lord always provides. Um, the Lord went through great orchestration due to great displeasure. He must have been very displeased with what was going on. So he pulled Brian out of retirement to reestablish the End Time Tribune. And I'm very thankful for that. And if it wasn't for Brian, this would not be happening. So I'm very thankful that in the midst of in the midst of great hurt and disappointment, that the Lord rose Brian back up to meet the occasion. I'm very thankful for that. So if you get a chance, send Brian a private message and thank him because I'm very grateful we're doing this. And this is all my wife's idea. I mean, it was Rachel that said, you should start the End Time Tribune, start it back up. So if you get a chance, thank Rachel and Brian, and that's the truth. That's it for me. Till next time, God bless, Godspeed. Brian?
Yep. Thanks everyone for joining us and God bless. And to add in, I'm glad to be back. I've been, as Matthew says, I've been chomping at the bit for a couple years here at least. So I'm definitely happy to be back in and doing this again. All right. Once again, thanks for joining us. God bless everyone.